This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is a Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, as always, is Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
And Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And this is the third time that we are trying this. Technically the fourth, because I messed up the start of the third time. But today, we are talking about the red-hot Philadelphia 76ers. We are talking Ja Morant's best fit in the NBA. We are doing our NBA draft mailbag after we did our mock draft 4.0 last week. And we have the Wet Boys segment, the reoccurring weekly segment of the Wet Boys. What are you guys looking at that's so entertaining? Shoes. Oh, great.
He's getting his game
we are
I'm
locked in and loaded.
I'm
here
just
on the
letting
Fast
you
Break.
do your own thing.
He's just
Well, when you're making faces like, ooh, what's that?
I didn't expect them to be as much as they are.
Anyways, before we get into all that stuff, 76ers and the draft topics that we have, we do want to reach out to you and say, if you do want to become a patron, now is the time to do so. April 1st, we are revamping all of the rewards and tier systems. We're going to have a, bronze, silver, and gold tier.
Yep.
They are going to be extremely fun. We're extremely excited for current patrons and obviously new patrons. You guys want to jump in as soon as possible. We also want to give a shout out to Bryant from the mock draft, the full mock draft on YouTube. He was pumped that he got 3 hours and 30 minutes of content. He wound up supporting, so we want to thank Bryant for his contribution. And you can contribute as well, patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. And also, if you feel like it, you can also head over to iTunes. Rating us 5 stars over there means the absolute world, and we appreciate if you do so. And if you do so, share it with us on Twitter. Share that screenshot with us on Twitter at mostvaluablepod. But let's jump into the Sixer talk. The Sixers, after getting back, Joel Embiid have been on an absolute tear. Joe is out for a little bit with injury problems, shocker, but now they're on a 6-game win streak. They're 7-3 in their last 10, and now they are in third place in the Eastern Conference, jumping the Indiana Pacers and jumping the Boston Celtics. They are red hot. Let's jump into the Sixers and Jake's team, 47-25. Dave, clearly Joe has been the big starting kind of kick to get them going.
Yeah.
And now we kind of see the whole inner workings of Jimmy Butler, Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, and Joel Embiid working together. What has been the biggest thing, though? Has it just been Joe's return, or is there something else on the floor that's really sparked this win streak?
It's learning to play together. I think that's the biggest thing. People saw, them putting together this great team and wanted instant results, but you got to remember that, Tobias Harris was a 1 basically playing on the Clippers. I know Lou Will was still there, but it was just like in the starting lineup, he was the number 1 guy. Jimmy Butler was the number 1 guy in Minnesota. So you're bringing in 2 guys who are used to having the ball in their hands for the majority of the time, and trying to integrate them into a team where they weren't really sure how to do it at first. You saw when Jimmy Butler first came over, Joel Embiid got a little upset because of the touches going on, the lack of involvement in the offensive system. So they had to evolve over time, and I think we're finally seeing the fruits of their labor. It's actually looking really nice out there as Joel Embiid's learning to work with these guys. Toby has just become a straight-up outside sniper. He's fantastic with the ball in his hands, but in that smaller role, he's so efficient for them, and he can do so much in that role. And then Jimmy Butler's basically just been given the keys to the kingdom in the fourth quarter. It's like, you'll get a couple touches early in the game, don't worry about it. But in the fourth quarter, that's your time to shine. We know where we're going to make our money. It's Joel Embiid in the post, and it's you working with the ball in your hands.
Yeah, our good friend Jake, obviously, we have him on the podcast. We had him in studio as well. He has really taken a turn on Jimmy Butler. He's really been a big fan of Jimmy late, and for good reason. The past 4 games, Jimmy averaged 23.5 points per game, 47 from the field, 37.5% from 3, and 84% from the line. And Jimmy hit a huge shot over Boston to win them that game. Jake was going crazy. Jake was terrified going into that game, and he was so happy and thrilled that they got that win. But even you look back at the Milwaukee game, obviously he wasn't the best performer in that game. Joel Embiid had a stupid game that day, but he still had 27
had
points.
an even better game.
Yes, but that's the thing with the Sixers is you look at this team, they have Tobias Harris, Jimmy Butler, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, all-star caliber level players, and when you have this level
JJ
of talent,
Redick's amazing shooting.
Yeah, and when you have this level of talent, you can overcome 52 points from Giannis Antetokounmpo, 15, 16, and 7. You can overcome that with JJ Redick who put up 19. You can overcome that with Joel, who put up 40. Jimmy Butler scoring 27. Tobias Harris putting up an efficient 12, and even Ben Simmons, who can put up 8, 9, 9, and only turn the ball over 3 times.
I think they've got the second best starting 5 in the NBA.
Who I was going to say who, but here's the question.
Statistically, they're better than the Warriors.
That's what I was going to say, because DeMarcus really hasn't had that team flowing.
Yeah.
But Ricky, I don't want to blind us too much, because right now the 6-game win streak has been great for the Philadelphia 76ers, but that's obviously not the level that they're going to play with every single night, unless you think differently.
Well, two things I'm thinking about. First off, within this win streak, although it's been impressive, although Joe has been the kind of catalyst for this with Jimmy, the thing I do want to throw out there is Indiana's not at full strength.
Right.
The Cavaliers are the Cavaliers. The Kings have fallen off. Like, besides that, 3 of their games, probably not the toughest opponents. Where the Milwaukee game to me was like, whoa, because Giannis can go off for 50-plus points, and they still go ahead and beat the Bucks. Now, Nico only had 2 points that game. Is not ideal. Night. But I feel like the second thing I thought of was, although it was a few days later, this almost reminds me like the mini run that Boston went on before their playoffs last year, where it was about a week or two later. It was into April the first week, but they went on a similar run where they won about 6 games, then kind of stumbled into the playoffs. What is Philly going to do with this? Because with Jimmy and Tobias being on this team, the biggest thing I look at is we're not putting as much pressure on Ben Simmons, because when I look at the games, he does great against non-playoff teams. All the other playoff teams scoring 13 against Boston, 8 against Milwaukee, and then he had 15 each against Indy and the Houston Rockets. So for me, Ben Simmons is the biggest question scoring-wise, and will he not have to score as much in the playoffs because they have Jimmy, because they have Tobias this year?
But my big question with this is, like, are we being blinded by the win streak is what I'm saying. Like,
I mean, they did it last year.
They did.
And
but
that
then
was a
let's
bit
look
of
at what
fool's
happened.
gold.
Yeah, let's look at what happened in the postseason. So do you think this is like the top that they can play, or do you think this is what the level they are at? Like, do you think this is just them
at their
finally,
very best?
Well,
yes.
This is them at their very best, and this is just not them, finally clicking together. That's my question. Is this them clicking?
I would say this is them at their very best.
Okay, so this is not them just clicking. This is them at their very best. Dave, do you agree with that?
I disagree. I think that this team is only starting to figure out what they can do together as a starting 5. I think that there is going to be more piled onto this. They're starting to get good off-ball movement. They're starting to utilize Ben Simmons working the low post matchups, which is something we hadn't seen earlier this year. When you have him going low post, about 12 feet out, and being able to slash to the net and for follow-up taps, rebounds, like it's something that we hadn't seen, and it's something that actually, like, when you watch, like, oh, no shit, he has a huge matchup advantage. Why wouldn't we do this thing? And it's just like, oh, Brett Brown suddenly is coaching. I'm concerned for, like, other teams, because it's things that we were constantly mocking the 76ers for was Ben Simmons' lack of offensive skill set. Basically, he was a facilitator, and if he couldn't do that, then he was basically staying outside, twiddling his thumbs.
Well, and also,
now he's much more active.
Jimmy called him out. The game they played, the one that we were there, were like, and it was the funniest thing from that game was when Jimmy was coming out of the locker room for that second final shot. Yeah. He was saying, like, we better draw up a better fucking play than what we just drew up. Yeah. Basically calling out Coach Brown.
I think that Brown. Yeah, so I think that this is the tip of the iceberg for them. They're hitting their groove, they're feeling great. I think now it's time to build off of what they've done.
Well, here's the question then for both of you now, because clearly you're thinking that this is them clicking. Yep. Ricky thinks it's just they're peaking, and it's a good 6-game win streak. But if we're looking at the grand scheme of playoffs and winning a title, are they the best team in the East right now? To Dave, if they're clicking, and this is just them finally coming together, and then Ricky at their best. Let's say this win streak. Like if they're playing Milwaukee tonight and they're playing Toronto tonight, and the series starts now. Let's say that if the series starts now, would you take them in 7 games? So we'll go to Dave first.
Sure.
Do you think that they are a legitimate threat going into the playoffs to win the Eastern Conference Finals and go to the finals? And then, Ricky, your question is, if playoffs started now and they're going up against Toronto or Milwaukee, let's just get rid of the seeds right now. Let's just say they're jumping to the Eastern Conference Finals. Would you take them in 7 against one of those teams. Dave, go first.
So I would take them. I do think they're a legitimate threat for the Eastern Conference Finals. There's a good chance. I mean, Milwaukee's beaten up right now. They've been healthy up until like the last month of this year, and then it's just everything comes down at the worst possible time. So I like how they played against Milwaukee, and it took a heroic effort out of Giannis to bring them just inches away from beating them. So give me that Sixers matchup going all the way. The Raptors are the scariest team to me in the East right now. Even though I picked the Celtics, things aren't right yet, and there's still a couple weeks to the regular season. I think there's 2 weeks, so I'm not going to give up on them. But right now, that Raptors matchup in the playoffs is the one I would be circling as that's your Eastern Conference Finals. That's what it could be. That's scary enough, but it could be.
Well, I'm shaking my head because if the seeding happened as it did now, that would be our second round matchup.
Right.
The thing with me,
throw seeding out.
Yeah,
so.
Throwing seeding out. I think, to just quickly answer that before I answer mine, the Bucks and the 76ers, that's what I want the Eastern Conference Finals to be. And I think it's a tricky question when you say right now, because I would say, yes, the 76ers have the best chance because they're the only team that isn't experiencing the injury bug right now. You've got Milwaukee, who's got Brogdon, who's out for multiple weeks. Nico's out for multiple weeks. You've got Toronto, who Kyle Lowry's day-to-day right now with an ankle injury. And then obviously the Celtics, they've been dealing with their kind of nagging injuries all years as well.
Embiid just took a game off literally 2 days ago.
But I'm saying during the win streak, they have consistently been there. There might have been 1 or 2 games, but the last 2, I look at the Milwaukee game, all of them were playing. And if all of them are out there on the floor playing like this, and this is why I go back to me, this is them at their best. I feel the Sixers to make the finals need all 4 out there in a playoff series.
Dave's gonna have a panic attack if I don't find the game that he missed. He missed the Charlotte game. Yeah. They lost, or they won 118-114. That was their second closest game that they have played. They played obviously the 3-point game, 3-point win against Boston. They won by 5 against Milwaukee. They won by 9 against Sacramento. They blew out pretty much Cleveland. They blew out Indiana.
And then
but
before
without
Charlotte,
they
missed
only won
8
by 4.
straight games. I mean, that's you can't say that pick and choose injuries.
No,
yes, they dealt with injuries to their best player.
And that's the thing
and
that I was going to get to at the weakness I see for the Sixers. Take that Hornet game. They win by what, 2 points?
4. And
Joe's not out there. To me, if all 4 of these players, Jimmy, Tobias, Ben, Joe, are not out there playing like they have been when all 4 of them are out there, then this team doesn't get to the finals. They need all 4 of them to get there.
100%. No, I'm just saying, I was just strictly saying, at this team's best, which is right now, they're playing at their best, would they beat Toronto or Milwaukee in a 7-game series?
Fully healthy Toronto, fully healthy Milwaukee.
At their best, what are they? That's what I'm trying to get to.
I would say Toronto,
even take
Milwaukee,
out the teams.
no.
Take out the teams. Just at their best, what are the Philadelphia 76ers?
Eastern Conference Finals at the least.
What are the best? Best, not the least. What are they the best? God damn it.
Well, it depends.
Can they win the finals? Can they win the finals at their best?
No,
yes.
not the NBA finals.
Yes, they can.
No, the Warriors will beat them. But it depends on team to me because if both teams are completely healthy,
what's their weakness? What's their weakness?
To me, it's one person not showing. To me, they need everyone to show up. Plus, it's the emotional factor. I go back to that Buck game. Yeah, they won by 5. Giannis had an amazing game. Why did they win that? Because of Embiid. And Embiid kind of being like that, not just put the team on my back, but you could tell he gave a little bit more for that game. Because even he said after the game, we've been talking about this guy over there. No, you should be talking about me and this team and the Sixer team. I feel like if they're going up against the Raptors, I would give it to the Sixers if they're playing like this. If they're playing the Bucks, it's a 7-game series. They have a chance, but I would still edge out with the Bucks if both teams are fully healthy and playing well in that 7-game series.
You said finals.
You're wrong. You're just wrong.
Why
they literally have the second best starting 5 in the NBA.
But their bench isn't that great.
Their bench is not that great, but they're still getting some contributions off their bench, which is enough. I think that's. Come on, we're talking playoffs, so everybody's gonna play 37 minutes a night, easy. So you're looking at maybe 7 minutes a time where it's gonna be just fluctuating, and we've seen Jimmy play 40+ minutes a night. Joe's even played 40+ now. I I don't have any fears about that. I just think that at the end of the day, it comes down to if your starting five is this good, and it is, then you'll be able to go in a series against anybody in the Eastern Conference. And I think you'll match up in the finals versus the Warriors. It's just that simple.
The thing I just think of is when we get to playoff scheduling, when the games are closer together,
they're spaced out more. People get more rest.
I feel like there are times, even with just the Warriors, an example, some of their playoff runs, some of the guys we're talking about, yes, they have amazing starters, but who off the bench has given a performance? Like Andre Iguodala, yes, he had to step in for injury, but when he didn't, we're still talking about him coming off the bench being a key piece.
Yeah,
that to me could be that could be a weakness, though, for the 76ers if they don't have that bench depth.
But the Andre Iguodala this year is a shadow of himself in the years past.
No, I'm just
Same
saying.
with Sean Livingston.
I'm just saying, looking at
the Warriors
recent
don't
history.
have a bench right now. They literally don't. Like, it's non-existent. There's nothing there. There's a reason why they have to rely on, even when Kevin Durant is healthy, like or not 100% healthy, he's still out there taking shots because it's better than letting their bench play those minutes. Like they have lost games. They lost more games recently than normal for the Warriors, to be honest. But like, I think this year it's such a top-heavy team. And I agree that it's the same way with the 76ers. Basically, you've got Mike Scott who can take some shots, and you have a backup point guard who can help alleviate some spacing issues. But outside of that, you're not expecting these guys to give you more than like 7 to 10 minutes. 10 is top, and that's extreme.
The thing that I will go to, and I think this is where we'll kind of get into, is what are the weaknesses of this team, and then finally, if they don't make the finals, where will their downfall be? Because I think, again, if they're all clicking, if this starting five is clicking, you're right. Yeah. They're probably the best starting five. And when you get to the playoffs and when you're cutting down those minutes, that is absolutely huge. And this is a team with playoff experience. Jimmy Butler's been in the playoff multiple times. Joel Embiid, this is not his first rodeo. Same with Ben Simmons. JJ Redick's been in the league since 2009.
He's been in the playoffs most of those years, if not all.
And Tobias Harris, I don't think he had. No, Detroit. I think he's been once with Detroit. I could be wrong because I don't think the Clippers made it last year, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
They did not.
Because they were a lottery.
They got Shea.
Yeah, so I think that he's been there once, but even then, I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to be. I don't think he's going to crumble in big moments. So I'm not extremely worried about it.
I'm not super worried because the ball's not going to be in his hands a ton.
He did. He played 4 games back in that Detroit 2015-2016. Put up 14.5 points, 9.5 boards, 3 assists, 45% from the field, 33% from 3. So played 39 minutes. So the big thing that I did see is the 39 minutes. That's all I care about. Because I think he's a much different player than he was when he was 23 years old. So I'm not really worried about like their playoff experience. I think it clearly comes down to Brett Brown. And
I agree.
If we're talking about the bench does concern me. And that's the reason why I'm concerned about the Warriors too, is because they don't have anybody to go to if, Steph gets injured or if, Klay's not on. They don't have somebody like Andre Iguodala like they had in the past who was playing up to that level. Obviously, they still have Andre Iguodala, but they don't have the same Andre Iguodala. He's older, he's slower, he's much more limited than he was at the Warriors' peak. I look at this bench and I do worry if Mike Scott's going to be able to contribute and hit threes and outside shots when they need him to. Can T.J. McConnell be a guy that because he's going to play. Can he be a guy that does the same performance that he did last year? I mean, last year he was a guy that came off the bench and did help this team.
He was like their MVP against the Celtics. Not losing effort.
So what's this bench going to be like when they get there? So I think the two that really stick out to me is Brett Brown on the bench. I think I can kind of come off the bench a little bit. The Brett Brown one I cannot though, because what we saw last year in the playoffs and the lack of the lack of awareness, but also the lack of discipline. I think the 76ers showed in that series against Boston. So what does Brett Brown need to do for the 76ers to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and then also make it to the Finals? What does he need to do to make sure this team, at least, like Ricky was saying, at their worst, and when they're at their best, at their worst, they only make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. What does Brett Brown need to do?
He needs to continue to adapt to his opponents. Like that's the biggest knock was he wasn't reacting to how his players were playing in games. He was giving them standard minutes and poor rotations, regardless of the effort that was being put out on the court or the results. When Ben Simmons was out there struggling against the Celtics, he let him struggle. And maybe that was just look, we got to the playoffs, we're playing with house money, and this kid needs minutes. Even if he's choking out there, he needs those minutes to understand this is playoff basketball, this is the intensity. So that was a huge knock against him, was his lack of ability to work those rotations, see what was happening in front of him, and make adjustments to go along with that to help his team win. So if we get to the playoffs and they end up with a bad matchup in round one and he's not able to make those calls and they eke by just pure talent-wise, I'm going to be concerned. Even if they win the series, I would say, like, oh, man, this shit is not going well. Like, it just... And that's the thing. You know that Joel Embiid is one of the most dominant players, and he relies so heavily on having the ball in his hands. He can work the low post, get to the foul line, and cause absolute problems for other bigs on other teams. But if they can't distribute the ball to him, if they can't give him those opportunities, if Brett Brown can't adapt his game to matchups, then they're screwed. Like, it's just... You're right. Like, he is their kryptonite right now. He is what everything rides on, is Brett Brown's performance and his coaching ability going into the playoffs.
Ricky.
I mean, with me, I think Brett Brown has to kind of be a little bit of Steve Kerr and a little bit D'Antoni. Where I think about those two, of course, Steve Kerr is the ultimate side, like to one scale, where, you know what, I'm just going to let you guys do what you do and kind of intermittent, put some things in here and there, where D'Antoni's kind of got the same thing, where it's like, let Harden, let CP3 kind of run the show, and then kind of just guide them a little bit. You don't have to be so hands-on. And I wonder is it because he's a Popovich disciple? Is it at times maybe Brett Brown feels like, I got to get my hands in here and kind of really like pull this team this way, where it should just kind of be like hey, you know what? Let Joe, Jimmy, and Ben and Toby kind of run this team, but then kind of throw in here and there an intermittence and kind of guide them rather than steer them. Like, that's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when it comes down to it, the biggest thing that I want to see from Brett Brown is I want to see the ability of late games transfer, because we've seen Jimmy Butler be able to take over the fourth quarter. But what if teams, let's say Toronto, are able to lock up Jimmy Butler? Because you're going to have Kawhi Leonard most likely on Jimmy Butler. If that does not work, are you going to feed the low post and give it to Joel Embiid and make him win it? I think he has the confidence to do it, but will he be able to make those shots? What if they have Marc Gasol out there and they lock up Joel Embiid? Will you be able to draw up a play to get Tobias Harris open, JJ Redick open, or are you going to give it to Ben Simmons and make him try to win the game? I think the biggest thing that he's going to need to be able to do is make sure his late game offenses work, especially if they're going to be throwing out something to make sure he goes away with what he's comfortable with.
Yeah.
So how is he going to adapt, I think, is the biggest thing that you mentioned, Dave, especially when it comes to late game situations, because we saw that against Boston. Did not work out for them. I think that if he wants to take this team as far as they can go, he needs to be perfect, especially in late games.
Based off of what Dave said, I got a question for either one of you. If you're the 76ers, who would you rather see in the first round, the Pistons or the Nets?
Doesn't matter. They win either way.
Yeah, I'd say they've had the Pistons number this year. I'm not concerned about them at all.
I'm on the other side. I feel like, I'm not saying like for sure like the Pistons would upset, but that's a team where I look at it and I go, if one person from the 76ers main four is off, the Pistons could take advantage.
See, I don't even think so, because I think it's the Blake Griffin show. And if you think that Reggie Jackson's going to be reliable, just laugh your way out the room. Like, that's not going to happen.
That's the thing.
He's never shown that in his entire career. Andre Drummond's a great rebounder, but Joel Embiid always gets the better of him.
Owns him.
It's every single year since
in
existence.
Drummond's head.
Exactly. It's hilarious. He puts on a clinic. So
and that's the thing, is like Blake can put up 35. Doesn't matter, because I mean, you don't have a defensive answer for Ben Simmons on that team. There's no one who's going to be able to guard him. And let's say, hey, they put Blake on him. All right, well, who are you going to have on Tobias Harris? Who are you going to have on Jimmy Butler? You cannot stop the talent that's on this team.
And
I think the Nets would be fun.
They just don't have enough shooting.
Yeah, I think the Nets would be fun, but I personally don't think any team has an answer.
Because kind of to go with that, though, the thing I throw out there, of course, it's one game. The last two between the Pistons and 76ers were close, but we've never seen both teams fully healthy. Yeah. Because Embiid didn't play the one game. And Sixers win by like 2. Then when they come to Philly, Drummond has 21. Embiid plays that game as 24. It's Butler who had 0 points in that game.
But they still didn't have Blake Tobias Harris.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Toby adds into difference, but Blake didn't also play that game. I think that could be
first round
an
to me does not
interesting
matter.
first-round series.
But it doesn't matter to me. I think if they play the Pistons and play the Nets, at worst, it's a 5-game series. Let's move to the final question,
Yeah.
and that's going to be, if the 76ers, let's say they have the hardest road, in your opinion, so whatever you think the hardest road is, so the hardest first-round matchup in your mind, the hardest second-round possible matchup, hardest third-round possible matchup, and obviously if they make it to the finals, playing the Warriors or whoever you think the Western Conference are giving the toughest thing, it's the Warriors. If they have the toughest road, how far do they get? And if they don't get there, what's their downfall? And if they do get there, let's say to the finals, what is the saving grace of this team, if it's not something you've already mentioned?
I think that see, it's between the second round or third round right now for me. I don't know.
So you don't think it's the finals?
I think
you said their peak is the finals.
I think their peak would be the finals, but if they go hardest road and they have to go up against the Raptors in round 2, I would be a little concerned because that just Kawhi Leonard has another gear, and we've seen it out of him,
especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, Yep. So like that's the thing. I don't know. We don't know that anyone on the Sixers has that. Jimmy Butler's been great for us, but he's never taken us to the next level. And I'm going back to the Bulls days. Like when he went to the playoffs, never was able to get that done. When he went to the Timberwolves, it was all about getting there. And when he was there, he was still hurt. He wasn't able to put forward much effort, or not much. He gave it everything, but he just didn't have enough. So I don't know. That Kawhi Jimmy matchup intrigues the hell out of me. So I would say hardest road, they end up in second round or third round, and it's just the finals is peak. Like if they're clicking on all gears, I don't think there's a team in the East that can beat them in a series of 7. So.
I would disagree with that. I think if they're clicking on everything, I still think that the Bucks can beat them. I mean, we even see what an injured Bucks team was doing, and if we're getting to the point where, because if they're going to meet in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Correct.
Brogdon will be back. Not sure.
Hopefully.
On Mirotic. Well,
it's
they're
a
saying
7-10 week injury or 6 to 8 weeks.
It was 4 to 8, 6.
I thought it was okay.
4 to 8.
Because we looked at it last week.
We did it.
And we
talked about it last week, and we said, worst he would be, or they were saying the best that if he came back at the first time, it'd be either like game 5 or 6 of the first round or the start of the second.
Okay.
So it'd be I think you'd probably be a fully healthy Milwaukee team.
Yeah.
And we saw how close it was in Milwaukee.
It's true.
Philadelphia still won.
Yep.
But also I think they're coming off the high of Joe turning it up a level.
Yep.
I think that even if they're clicking at full, I think Milwaukee still gives them a handful. I would still say the same with the Raptors too. The Raptors really haven't found their groove with making all the additions. Jeremy Lin hasn't been great. Marc Gasol hasn't been great for them. But I still feel like with their length, their playoff experience, I think the Raptors would still give them trouble, even if the Philadelphia 76ers are clicking. I still can't put my faith into the 76ers yet of them going in and winning a 7-game series. And I will gladly be proven wrong. If they go out and do it, congrats to them. They deserve it. I just want to be proven wrong. And right now I haven't been, and I need to see it. I think it's more of a win streak right now than them actually coming together and clicking. I think that this can easily just be overturned by 2 bad games, 2 bad losses, and we see more blow up and more hostility come out of this.
The absolute hardest road would be if they fall to the 4 seed, which I don't see happening. I have to go Celtics, Raptors, Bucks to the finals. But because I see them kind of sitting at the 3 when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I doubt they fall from the 3rd.
Pistons, Raptors, Bucks. That's the hardest road. And I think they fall to a fully healthy Buck in the Eastern Conference Finals because of, A, how much energy are they going to have to expend to get past Kawhi and the Raptors, and then they got to play Milwaukee.
Well, and that's the thing, too, is like we're talking about Joe being the catalyst for them. If he goes up against Marc Gasol is going to give him the toughest matchup that he'll see probably until the finals if Boogie's fully healthy and clicking.
Colin, could you imagine a Boogie versus Joe finals matchup?
Fucking fun. Could you imagine the process versus the Warriors? It'd be great.
The mind games, Twitter would be amazing. Post-game comments, like everything about that would be amazing. Just shit-talking fiesta. I love it.
And then also, Kevin Durant would get the MVP.
Also, if they're getting teed up and stuff.
Oh my God,
those two both get tangled.
They would get tossed.
Or even Draymond and Joe. That'd be fun. Draymond and Joe would be great.
See, that's the matchup we all want to see, right? Is there a funner matchup for the finals than Warriors versus Sixers?
Bucks Warriors. Bucks Warriors, Sixers Warriors. I wouldn't care either way.
No, I think 76ers Warriors would be the funnest.
I
think Nuggets 76ers would be the funnest. Joe versus Jokic. Come on. That'd be the decider for Jake and I. That'd be the decider for Jake and I. A 7-game series, Nuggets Sixers finals. Whoever wins, it's the best center in the NBA. I would love it. And could you imagine if the finals in 2019 was decided by fucking centers?
That'd be
awesome.
insane.
All right. So prediction for the 76ers is
They're going to lose in the Eastern Conference Finals to the Bucks.
Eastern Conference Finals to the Bucks.
Eastern Conference Finals of Bucks.
And Eastern Conference semifinals to the Raptors. To me. But hey, I'll be proven wrong. And if you're a Sixer fan, let us know what you think down in the comments below. They're clicking. Maybe it's not just a phase, Mom.
Yeah.
Maybe it's another 15.
It's not just a phase, Mom.
Maybe it's just another 15-game win streak that they're going to go on. But if you're going into the playoffs on a 15-game win streak, that's too hot. Like, that's the thing, is like, we've seen this time and time again. When you're that hot, there's always a fall. There's always a collapse.
Yeah.
There's never not a collapse. So I think that's going to be the crux of this team. But hey, fuck, maybe they're wrong, and maybe the process will be finalized with a ring. But we'll have to see come June when the finals
Elton
are.
Bryant would be seen as like a wizard at that point. Like, just like, how did you?
And not a Washington Wizard.
Not a Washington Wizard, like a real life wizard.
Yeah, like a hat and everything.
Yeah.
But let us know your thoughts down in the comments below.